Now I get to introduce Bill Courtney, and I really don't think he needs any introduction. But I do want to say, first of all, thank you, Bill. Bill is the chairman of our board of directors. I try to make that as easy a job as possible because our members are extremely busy. But Bill, besides remodeling a house, having a beautiful wife, many wonderful, fabulous children, runs Classic American Hardwood, and I don't know, are you coaching anywhere right now, Bill? That seems to
Not this year.
Not this year, taking a little break. The only thing I don't like about Bill is he's an Ole Miss fan. So I'm just kidding. But I'm going to turn it over to you, and even for you, I will cheer for Ole Miss. So come on, Bill Courtney.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you. Hotty toddy. Thank you for having me. Thank you for asking me to be here. It's good to see y'all. Good to see all my friends and Mike Brunn. These things are odd, and I speak at all over the country at places, and these kind of intimate affairs, especially at home, especially I know so many people that are in here. It's I want to choose my words carefully because they stick around here. I can't just leave town. So I thought about, there's business owners in here, there's a lot of success in here, and what do I share that you don't already understand or don't already know? And so I just came from the Fogelman School of Business, and I spoke to the master's candidates there at 10 o'clock this morning, and I'm going to tell you what I told them, because I think it's applicable, especially in our society today. First, for those of you who don't know me, grew up here. I'm a Memphian through and through. Dad left home when I was 4, grew up in some apartments over near Marquette Park. Kind of grew up running around town. My press center paper route was where Gibson's Donut is. I skinned my knees at Marquette Park. The chains back then, the nets back then were chain. And went to Ole Miss and came back and started teaching school and coaching football while I was working on my dissertation, my doctorate dissertation. And I coached that guy right there who still looks like an 8th grade kid, and that guy next to him right there. They both played basketball for me and football. And that's really all I ever wanted to be, was a teacher and a football coach, because the reality in my life was my mom was not a good chooser and was married and divorced a number of times, and there were not many positive influences in my life from the male perspective, except for the people that coached me. That was my world. Is the only decent men in my life were my coaches, and so I thought that a very honorable profession, and so that's what I wanted to do. The problem is, one day in the back of the cafeteria at the school I was teaching at, walked in this thing, and she had on Daisy Dukes, long brunette hair, a lime green shirt, a bow, tan skin, and big pretty smile, and she kind of shook me a little bit because fat redheaded guys don't hang out with girls that look like that. And anyway, I married her. And so when you're fat and redheaded and you got a dime at the house, you start worrying about how to keep her at the house where she goes away. So we just started having kids. And my kids were 1, 2, 3, and 4. We got on city water and it cleared up, but it was touch and go for a while. And so I had all these kids keep around the house, but now I'm making $17,500 a year teaching school and coaching football with 4 kids, no insurance, and a hot wife, and I'm broke, and so I had to quit that, and I got in the lumber business. I got in all kinds of different things. Ended up in the lumber business in 2001, started my business in Memphis with $17,000, and I've been very blessed. 20 years later, we'll do about $60 million in revenue this year. We've got about 140 employees. I've got an office in Shanghai, an office in China, manufacturing here, and I've just Been very lucky. Been very, very blessed. And so during the middle of that is when I started coaching Manassas. They made the movie and the book and the Academy Award and all the other crap. And so I get the question all the time, how? How does that happen to a fat, redheaded guy from Memphis that came from nothing and things happen? And how does it happen? And that's what I want to share with you. The reason I told you all about Lisa and everything is after the Academy Awards, she said, I don't care if you get up in front of people, don't care if you write the book, don't care if you do the movie shows, don't care if you do the TV stuff and podcast, I don't care if you do all that, but the one rule is keep it real. You got to keep it real, because if you don't keep it real, then you start thinking you're somebody you're not and everything else. I don't want to be. So because my wife's hot and I'm scared to death of her and I do what she says, I keep it real. And that's what I want to do today is just keep one lesson that I got over the last 20 years real with you to maybe think about when you're going through the rest of your day. But I do want to tell you one quick story. I was talking to the Olympics. I was in Colorado Springs talking to the United States Olympic team before they left for the Olympics. And this is not this Olympics, but the last one. And I'm going down an escalator into this massive auditorium. And I mean, it's huge, right? Because there's like, I don't know how many Olympic people and coaches and families. Anyway, I'm going down there and it's kind of a big speech. And so I'm kind of, thinking about what I'm going to say. I don't use a teleprompter or cards or a PowerPoint. So I'm really kind of focusing on what I'm saying, but I'm keeping it real because that's what Lisa told me to do. And I'm halfway down the escalator, and about halfway down on the escalator, there's these two girls down here on the left, and they're probably swimmers or gymnasts or whatever. I mean, they're young, and they're gorgeous is what they are. They're down there on the left. And, I'm a happily married man, and so I look and shake and I glance back because that's what we did. But and I'm keeping it real. And the first one goes, there he is. And I'm like, yeah. Here I am. That's right. And the other one said, I know him too, but I thought Chris Farley had died. So the world has an interesting way of when you don't keep it real to bringing you back to reality. And if anything the last 8 years has taught me, it's that. So here's what I want to leave with you. I believe we are suffering in our families and our businesses and our culture and our politics and everywhere. I think we're suffering from an abject loss of leadership. I can do a big old massive speech on that, but I'm not going to subject you to it. We only have about 15 more minutes and I'm going to make it quick. But there's a lesson that I learned that if I think about the turning point in my life in terms of when my business took off, when my career took off, when all this other ancillary stuff of movies and TVs and books and everything took off, and really when my personal growth as a human being took off, it was this moment that I want to share with you. And unfortunately, I think Jay's actually heard this story, so I hate to be redundant. You can just sit there through it. And I haven't told this story in some years. I used to tell it all the time, but I want to share it with you guys. When I got to Manassas, they'd won 4 games in 10 years. Their previous 10 years record was 4 wins and 95 losses, which is, as you know, horrific. And that the school had been around for, I think, 97 years and had never not only won a playoff game, but this time they didn't even been to the playoffs. And when I got there, y'all, for those of you who know football, many of you won't, but a suspension helmet is an old football helmet that has kind of a donut in the top of it and 3 nylon straps and then a jaw pad. And so the shell of the helmet sits on that donut and jaw pads and it's just suspended on your head. They've been illegal since 1987 and they were still wearing them because that's all they could afford. They didn't have uniforms, they didn't have helmets, they didn't have crap. So the first order of business was, well, let's get them in legal equipment, which was a bunch of money. So we did that. And then we show up to practice, and there's all these there's only 18 kids, and it's hard to have a high school football team with 18 kids, but there's a bunch of athletes running around, but they don't know anything about the basics of football. So we start coaching football. So the first thing we do is we get them what they need. We get them the equipment they need. We get them the tools that they need, just the basic tools that they need. And the second thing is we start teaching the basics of what they have to do to be good football players. Well, about halfway through summer practice, it became evident to me that it wasn't just about equipment and tools in football, but it was also about fundamentals and tenets. Character, commitment, integrity, the value of hard work, the idea that the hands on a clock are a reality rather than a suggestion, and that showing up 10 minutes early is showing up on time. Showing up on time is almost late. Showing up late is inexcusable. All of those kind of basic fundamentals, they were so absent in a lot of the culture at Manassas. And there's no way you can have the best athletes in the world, but if you don't have teamwork, if you don't have selflessness, if you don't have commitment, if you don't have character, if you don't have a willingness to sacrifice for the person next to you, you're not going to have a good team. So it was clear we had to start coaching that stuff too. So we started coaching fundamentals, life fundamentals, as well as football fundamentals. Halfway through the season, we're 3-3. Now, I think 3-3 is average, but when you've won 4 games in 10 years, they think 3-3, I'm like a fat redheaded version of Newt Rockney or something. I mean, they're down with it, right? Very respectful. Yes, sir. No, sir. Very respectful. And, they kind of fell in line on the football field because, hey, new equipment, winning some ball games. I didn't make them ride up and down the street on cheese. All right, it's a yellow bus, a skill bus. We rented charter buses so that you could look good. And, when I played ball, your uniform really didn't matter. But in today's world, kids, you got to be cold to be cold. So, I'm sorry, Mike, let me translate for the old people. You got to look good to be good, all right? So, you keeping up, Mike? All right. So, so all that. And halfway through the season, we're 3-3. And while the whole team, yes or no, sir, certainly buying into all the football stuff, half the team was buying into, when you get to a door with another person, step aside and hold the door for another person. Do your homework. Be respectful to members of the opposite sex. Be respectful to your teachers. Don't be hanging out at the corner store where they do 90-cent fried rice and nothing good happens after 9:30 at night. Get yourself together. So half the team was buying into that. Half the team was not. While the whole team was buying into the football, the yes or no sir and everything, half the team was buying into the important stuff. The other half the team, not so much. And the minute practices or games were over, they were back in the streets doing the same kind of destructive behavior that got them to 496 in the first place, right? And it was driving us crazy because, after all, I had a business to run. I was volunteering here. This wasn't just about winning football games. It was about trying to win hearts and minds and souls and maybe help some people see a different version of the possibility of the future for themselves. But they couldn't see it without that stuff. They see football, but nothing else. So I'm frustrated, and every coach has a guy. And I went to my guy. His name's Jamie Bobo, senior that first year I was there, and I said, Jamie, man, what do I got to do? Yeah, everybody's yes or no on football. We're winning some games. But what do I got to do to get this half the team to buy into the important stuff like your half the team? Now, Jamie was the guy that when I first got to Manassas and somebody said, Coach, they slaw, I would look at him and say, what? And he'd say, they're no good. He helped me understand the vernacular, right? All right? And he helped me understand culture that I didn't know. And I helped him understand some culture. We had those out of the box, out of comfort zone, real talk conversations that are life's most rewarding and enlightening, frankly. And we had those conversations. So I knew I could go to Jamie and he'd tell me what was up. Coach, can I hold $2? No, you so green. That's stingy. Yeah, yeah. Mike, you keeping up? All right. So I go to Jamie, I said, Jamie, what do I got to do to get this half the team to buy in like this half to the important stuff? The football's good, but this is hurting me, man. It's driving me crazy. He said, Coach, just keep doing what you're doing, dismissively, like your kids will to you. And I said, no, bro, for real, what's up? He said, all right, Coach, you want the real truth? I said, yeah. He said, I don't want to hurt you. You're not going to hurt me. He said, Coach, you're trying to figure out if you're a turkey person or not. I thought, man, last 10 months, Jamie's taught me a lot, but I ain't heard that one yet. And I said, what you talking about, bro? And he said, Coach, every Thanksgiving and Christmas and holidays, people roll into our neighborhoods from where you're from, and they drop off hams and gifts and turkeys, and we take them because we ain't got none, but that they leave and we never see them again. Makes you wonder if they're doing that because they care about us or they're doing that to make themselves feel good. We have an abject loss of leadership in our society today. And the greatest leaders of our time served in order to lead. And they did it for the edification of those they sought to serve, not for their own exaltation. Look, y'all, if you serve at soup kitchens, or you do, I cook turkeys for every single one of my employees every Thanksgiving. We fry turkeys all day long, 160 of the damn things. So I love giving away turkeys. That doesn't make you a turkey person. The moral to the turkey person story is motive. What is your motive for holding the leadership and management and high positions we have in society today? Because if you're simply motivated by your own ascension and those you seek to lead are simply pawns in that ascension, you are in fact a turkey person. And you may be a manager, but you are no leader. And I say this to you, not as a preachy thing, but I got to tell you more about the story. So I heard that, and I'm going to tell you the truth. I was pissed. I've spent $50,000 on uniforms. I'm spending $1,200 every Friday night on a bus. I'm paying for every one of you to have ACT prep classes. I'm feeding you every Friday. We did film on Sunday. I feed you every Sunday. I'm literally spending $60,000 or $70,000 a year to do this for you. I give the school money for the basketball program. I make sure you all have clothes. I go to work now at 4 in the morning so that from 11 to 12 I can go to school during lunch to make sure y'all aren't in trouble. I hold a study hall from 2 to 3 and tutor all of you. From 3 to 5:30, I coach you every day. I have a weight program in the off season, summer and spring practice. You're all cared for. And you want to ask me if I'm a turkey person? You're telling me they're not buying in because I ain't doing enough? I'm going to tell you something. You can't help these folks. You can't help these folks. It's just folks you can't help. You can't do nothing for these people. I always got the handout victims want something for nothing. Man, if this ain't enough, nothing is. One of my favorite mantras that's in my book is, the most valuable measure of the success of a leader is the actions of the followers. One of the greatest measures of the success of a leader is the actions of the followers. The problem is I didn't know that back then. I just knew I was doing everything I was supposed to do, and these kids are stupid and a pain in the ass, and they talking crazy about me when I'm doing nothing trying to help them. You can't help these folks. I decided I was going to finish the season out, but I'm done. You can't help these folks. They're so institutionalized and ingrained that we're on 2 and 3 and 4 generations in New Chicago, Smoky City, and Greenlaw, where folks are they're gone. You can't do nothing for them. So the deal was, after practice at Manassas, I always went out to Germantown because the deal was I coached my boys as well as coached Manassas kids, and they were little. They were like 6 and 7 at the time. So I would leave Manassas and drive like hell to Germantown to make it in time for practice then. And I would always show up in my Manassas gear because I didn't have time to change. Except one time I was on 240 and I decided to change and I had my shirt off and one of my man boobs was hanging out. And this gray-haired lady next to me looked over and was so stark surprised by the shock, she damn near drove off the road. So it was a safety issue that I no longer changed in the car. So I get to Germantown, throwing my kids football practice, and I'm always wearing my Manassas gear. And people walking up going, Bill, what's this Manassas stuff all about? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm at Manassas. They're like, really? And then they look in the box score and they're like, Bill, Manassas is 3-3. They ain't never won no games. I'm like, yeah, man, I got them winning ball games. They say, what else? I'd be like, yeah, man, I got them taking ACT prep classes. Bill, what else about Manassas? Man, I bought them all new equipment. And then they'd say, so the commercial appeal came out, not sports page, front page, 7x9. That's like a quarter of the whole front page. And the title was Manassas Miracle. It's a picture of me. And people walk up with newspapers and say, Bill, man, this is awesome. And they kept telling me everything. And every time anybody asked about Manassas, I'd tell them all the stuff I was doing. And I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed it. Remember, I came from Marquette Park. I didn't belong in a $700,000 house in Germantown. That's not where I came from. And all of a sudden, my business and my work in the community had ascended me to a place that people, I knew their names but never knew me, were patting me on the back, saying, hey, man, that is amazing what you're doing. Good job. I'm telling you something, felt good. Felt real good. I was being recognized for what I was doing. And I liked that. And that made me feel good. Do you know why kids sleep in the tubs in the hood? Do you? Who said uh-huh? Yes, sir. Because in the hood, houses are old. They were built before the 40s, and the tubs are cast iron, not like this stuff we buy today. So they will put their children in cast iron tubs in the hood to sleep at night, so if there's a drive-by, they survive the evening. Do you know that you couldn't, one of my rules was you can only wear blue and gold. Those are the only colors you're allowed to wear. In other words, you can't wear black, red, or purple, or deep blue, because that's Crips, Bloods, Disciples, all that, right? So I had one kid show up to practice, about 5'4", 120 pounds, soaking wet, little kid, knuckle bumps literally all over him. And I'm like, JP, what's up? He's like, nothing, coach, let's roll. He had to take a 3-minute beating to get out of his gang so he could play football, or they were gonna take repercussions on his sister. And he never once griped about it. I had kids getting called sellouts. Man, y'all look, Manassas is all black. I'm not. So I had kids being called sellouts. Man, this white man, he ain't got nothing for you. Homework's for chunks. I had kids getting called Uncle Tom. I had kids having to break friendships to be part of one positive thing at Manassas that was this football team. Sleeping in tubs, doing homework, getting called chumps, having to change their friendships, all to be one part. And anytime anybody asked me anything about Manassas, I was happy to tell them what I was doing. Yes, I was committed. Yes, I gave a lot of my time and my money. And yes, I was doing a good thing. But my motives were screwed up. And as a result, the actions of my followers were screwed up too. We have an abject loss of leadership in our society today. And it starts with us looking in the mirror and understanding we are so blessed to be in this building. We are so blessed to be at this lunch. We are so blessed to have the things we have. We are so blessed to have the station in society we have. We are so blessed to have all of those things. And the requirement of those blessings are that we serve and give back. And I don't mean you have to go coach in the inner city. I don't mean you have to go teach. I'm just saying this. Your children, your grandchildren, the people in your organizations, in your business, are you managing or are you leading? Are you really trying to serve them in a way that helps them? True leaders try to build up those around them. And they give credit when things go well, and they shield the followers when things go wrong. And when you do that, and you truly serve, and you truly do your work simply for the edification of another person inside whatever organization it is you're leading, when you do that, you will see the followers fall in line because they will recognize what your motives are. Because the turkey person story is not about doing good things, it's about why you're doing the good things. The turkey purse story is not about why you're trying to lead or be in a management position. It's about being in a management position, but about why. It's your motive. And I think we have an abject loss of leadership in our society today, in our business today, and everywhere today, because we have forgotten the why. Here's the payoff pitch. I grew up at Marquette Park, like I told you. We didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. And I get to talk to people all over the country. I have an Academy Award, I have a book, and I'm here in front of you. And the payoff is this. I'm living proof that you get 50,000 times more out of true servant leadership than you put into it. It comes back to you in spades. So if you step aside, you let the followers get credit where credit's due, you take problems away when things aren't right, you work hard simply for the edification of the other person, and you measure yourself not by what people say about you, but you measure yourself by the actions of the followers, then you have a chance to actually exact some serious measure of change for people's lives. And the payoff for you is it exalts you in the process. So that's what I mean in my book by going against the grain, and that's what I mean by undefeated, which is not about wins and losses. It's about not being defeated by your circumstances. And that is what I told a bunch of unsuspecting kids at the the Memphis Fogelman School of Business today, and hopefully gave you something to think about as you go about your day to day. Thanks.
That was amazing. I've heard parts of that and I got chills, so I know y'all did too. So, Bill, thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Bill while he's still here?
Anything but not from Bruns, because I can't imagine what he might say.
Well, one of the questions that I got, I looked at a couple of your videos, the one with the CBN, and your book was Against the Grain. And for football, most of us, we can really recognize some of the challenges that you face when you say Against the Grain football. But what were some of the challenges that would be similar to Against the Grain for your business?
Well, so I'm in the lumber business, and everybody's watched ESPN a couple of times, right? So you see these football plays, right? Where, they show the same plays over and over again from 20 years ago, and it's never a play where a guy goes around the end and just runs out of bounds. They don't show that play over and over again. They show the one where the guy goes around the end, sticks his foot in the dirt, and cuts back in the defense across the grain. And that's kind of the timeless ones. It breaks tackles. Those are the ones that just are timeless for you. And my life is two things. It's football and lumber. And the other thing is that, no offense if your house is nothing but IKEA furniture, that's great, but it's not going to last to your grandkids, right? The furniture that lasts to your grandkids, or the furniture you have that was your mother's or grandmother's furniture, is that piece of furniture that is doweled and it's withstood the test of time, and it's an heirloom piece. And somebody took 5 different kinds of grits of sandpaper and worked that lumber against the grain. And somebody rubbed that lumber against the grain down to a fine grit, and then they stained it against the grain to get that stain and that patina on it. And the reason that furniture is passed down year from year is it's beautiful and it's timeless, and it's an heirloom piece that lasts forever. And that came from the painstaking work and labor of just patiently and constantly working that piece of furniture against the grain. And so I think if you work a piece of furniture against the grain, and the things in football that are the ones that are awe-inspiring to us is when we cut back and go against the grain. I think the metaphor is maybe we should go against the grain of societal preconceived notion about what race or politics or religion says about what I'm supposed to think about you and you're supposed to think about me. And we just decide we're going to put all that bullshit aside, and I'm going to find out about you and you find out about me, and let's see what common ground we can find. And when we go against the grain of what society tells us we're supposed to think about one another, that true leadership and process can happen. Anything else? Okay. Yes. Go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, I'll make it short and simple. So you got turkey people over here, right?
Right.
And then here's the guy that gets up at 4 in the morning to go do the work and make the lunch trip. And I'm thinking about the sustainability of that lifestyle before you physically burn out after a few years doing it.
You're looking at one of them. That's why I left after 7 years. It was just too damn much.
And I want to go from the why to the how. Is there a way to build a leadership pipeline to pass the baton, to prep people?
Listen, I hear what you're saying. I want to say this one more time. This is not a guilt thing, and I'm not saying every one of you need to run out right now and sign up for something somewhere else, all right? Because we all have tons going on in our lives. What I'm saying is the opportunity to be a servant leader exists right in front of you right now, every day, in your marriage, with your children, with your friends, and in whatever organization you're in. All I'm saying is that we get so consumed with ourselves and we get so enamored, frankly, with what people say about our own successes that oftentimes we become poor leaders in the process because our motives get screwed up. And I'm just saying, what Jamie Bobo taught me was, look, man, when you're a manager, someone will say yes or no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am to them. If you're a manager and not a leader, and they will do exactly what you say you're going to do, and you can turn around and say, they're doing what I said, I'm leading them. But man, when you turn around, they're staring darts through your back. If they think that they're only doing whatever it is to make you work, all I'm saying is there's a difference in service and service leadership management, and I'm saying the opportunities exist in front of all of us in all of our lives right now. We don't have to run out and start a nonprofit to be a servant leader. My problem was I didn't know what work-life balance was, and I burned myself out, right? But it didn't mean that I didn't take that 30,000-foot view and that tenet and that fundamental and employ it in my business and my family and my life. And as a result, I and the people around me are much happier. And I think we should challenge ourselves to think about what servant leadership is, and that the basic root of it is, what are our motives? And truly, the only person who knows your motives are you. So we need to check ourselves.
That was great. Thank you so
All right.
much, Bill.
Thanks,
I
everybody.
really appreciate it.